everyone, this is Ellen, and today I'm going to share with you a little crochet tip about how to frog difficult yarn. In this case, the yarn I'm talking about is Cookie by Yarbo that I picked up at Hobbii. Now, don't get me wrong, I love this yarn. I made the sweater I'm wearing now. It's very comfy, cozy, and lovely, but it is a bit fuzzy. You can see the fuzziness, and in some sections it's more fuzzy than others. And the fuzziness almost acts like real wool, in such that the fibers will cling to each other and sometimes really intertwine and create knots and make it impossible to frog without cutting pieces away. And it's really frustrating. Now, this is 100% acrylic yarn, and so it's not really felting, but the fibers are sort of acting in that way. So as I'm frogging this piece, I've already spent probably like an hour frogging this. And unfortunately, you'll see there's lots of sections where I've joined, where I changed colors. And of course, I shouldn't have had to have done that because this is a color changing cake. And the colors, that's the whole point of using a color changing cake, is you shouldn't have to change colors midway. But I wasn't really enjoying the way this colorway was working out. I wanted to create more balance, so I started going crazy and cutting away and adding new sections of the cake, and it got crazy. And then I decided that enough was enough and stopped with that. So now I am tasked with the chore of frogging this. So let's see, let me find the end here. Okay, so I found the end and I started pulling it and it just started frogging nicely. So that's really great. So I'll just kind of go with that for a few seconds and you see how far I get. Oh, not that far. So there it's pulling. And at this point, I am not going to pull harder, because if I pull, it's going to kind of create a little knot here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my top stitch here and see about loosening that up. And that loosened up nicely. It popped up. And I'm going to hold that firmly, and then I'm going to hold my working yarn and pull it. And you see how that just kind of was being held up by that little fiber there? And that lifted up nicely. So now what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to start winding up my little ball here, just so my yarn doesn't become a big giant yarn mess. So, nothing worse than like spending hours frogging and having a big giant yarn octopus next to you. All right, so my first tip of the day when you're frogging a difficult fuzzy yarn with crochet is work in sections, like maybe 4, 5, 6-inch sections. Grab the section like I'm doing with 2 hands and give it a pull. And you'll feel like you might even hear it. You'll hear like a little crack, and that's the fibers breaking apart. And then you should be able to just pull up, see, and it doesn't always work. So that's stuck right there, and I don't want to pull too hard in the same direction because that's just going to make it more difficult. So I'm going to hold that last stitch in place, and I see there's a fiber there, and I can try pulling up, but that's not working too well. So I'm going to pull down and then up, and that popped up. So you want to I'm using a light hand here. Again, if you pull too hard in one direction, then it's very likely that your yarn will knot up and you will not be able to continue frogging without cutting portions away. And I don't want to do that. So again, I'm going to pull there, and I'm going to frog, 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 frog. Pull, pull, pull. Rip it, rip it, rip it, rip it, rip it. Pull, pull, pull. Rip it, rip it, rip it, rip it, rip it. In case you don't know what frog means, and where the term frog came from, is that it came from rip it, rip it, rip it, which sounds sort of like a frog. So every foot of frogging or so that I do, I'll go and wind my yarn so that I don't get that big yarn octopus mess. Some people call it yarn barf or whatever. I don't want to have to be, dealing with trying to untangle yarn after spending all this time frogging difficult yarn. So I'm just going to get my ball there. Okay. Then I'm ready to continue frogging. Grab my 2 ends of about 4 to 6 inches, give it a tug, a few tugs, and then frog. Now, it got caught there. and I'm pulling very, very gently here just to show you the tug. I'm not pulling hard. Hold that last stitch in place, hold my working yarn, lift up. Usually that works. If it doesn't work, I go down and then up, and it will work. Pull, 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 rip it, rip it, rip it, pull, pull, rip it, rip it, rip it, pull, pull, rip it, rip it, rip it, and wind my yarn. And that is the main trick for difficult yarn, is to make sure that you are using a light hand, you're not forcing your yarn, and to sort of help your yarn before you frog it to release those fibers by pulling at your stitches first. I find that really helpful. I also really find it helpful to be working in the direction that I crocheted initially. I mean, I guess you could, hold it that way and frog that way. I also find that if you're pulling up, see how it immediately gets stuck? Almost all the times when I pull up to frog, it doesn't work well. So here I'm going to hold that stitch. I'm going to pull to the side. Doesn't work well. I'm going to pull down and up. Fine. Great. However, if I pull in the same direction that it was crocheted, it pulls out a lot more easily. Oh, it's stuck again. So then I hold the top of the last stitch. It's not going to go that, it's not, I'm tugging it gently that way, it's not going anywhere. So I'm going to tug it down and then up. Still not doing it, I'm going to do down and up a few times. Let me pull it. I had to give it a little bit more of a pull. Did you hear that crunch? That was the fibers letting go. That was this here, that lovely grouping of fibers. And the way this yarn is that there are bunches of fibers like that throughout. So that's fine. That's supposed to be there, but it does get caught. This yarn is a thick and thin yarn, and it's kind of fuzzy. And those fibers are getting intertwined. Sort of how wool would work, but this yarn is not wool. This yarn is acrylic. So, acrylic's not supposed to felt. It's just getting tangled up. Wind my yarn. Wind, wind, wind. I turn my ball as rotate my ball as I'm winding so that I can create a nice ball. And I'm not doing it too tight either. I'm doing it sort of loosely, although it's a little tight. Actually, I probably should do it a little bit more loosely, to be honest with you. Yarn should be wound. Sometimes people will put their fingers and wrap around their fingers. So I've got my finger back here and I'm sort of wrapping, and that keeps a nice loose, and then you pull your finger out every so often, and that keeps a nice loose ball. You could go that way, and what that does, or you can just really do a light, here I am laying it lightly. What that does is that it will not stretch your yarn, whereas if you were going to ball your yarn very firmly, you were running the risk of stretching your yarn. FYI. But back to frogging. So here I am here, and I'm stuck there a little bit. I've got a little white fiber holding that together, so I can give it a little tug that way. No. Let's go down and to the side. No. What I need to do is hold this stitch and just lift everything up. And because this yarn is already kind of fuzzy, that's not hurting the yarn at all. All right, so at the end of the row and the beginning of the row is always the most difficult part when you're frogging, because you've got different stitches, and not, I don't mean different stitches, but you've got the chain one turn. You're giving more opportunity for your fibers to become even more entwined. So I always use an extra light hand here. I move very, very slowly, and sometimes what I'll do, I know if I pull right now, there's a really good chance that this loop, this is that working loop after my first chain one here. I'm going to take my crochet hook, I'm going to put it in there, and I'm going to pull it, I'm going to make it bigger. And I felt it resist. But what that's going to do is it's going to allow me to frog it a little better, because I took those fibers and I release them. Okay, I will turn my work, and here we go. Now I have another whole row to frog. Rolling my yarn up, and I can continue by pulling. This helps so much. Frog, 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 frog. Now if I don't pull and I just frog, 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 and I just keep frogging, while there I get stuck. So what's going on here? Well, it looks like it's stuck right there. If I pull up, it releases. Look at all that fuzz. But it does help to yank it, pull. Yank it, pull. And this is just the fastest way to frog. Don't pull up, because if you pull up, it gets immediately caught, you see? And then you have to do your thing where you lift up. It's best to pull from the same direction that you crocheted from. Pull. Pull, rip it, rip it, rip it, rip it, rip it. Pull, 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 rip it, rip it, rip it. So much easier to do it this way. Pull, 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 rip it, rip it, rip it, pull, pull, rip it, rip it, rip it. Whereas if I don't do that and I just pull from the top, it's going to get quickly, there, it's stuck. But it's okay when it gets stuck. So you want to hold on to that last stitch, hold on to your working yarn. See, okay, so here I'm actually like halfway through a double crochet, it's stuck. So I'm gonna bring it down, and that really helped it. See? If I just kept pulling it, it would have just knotted up that half of a double crochet and I would be stuck. But instead, I went down. You want to keep going this way, but no, you gotta do the opposite and go down first and then. But if you yank both sides of your section before frogging it, much less likely to have any sort of problem. But when you do come across that problem, that's the way to deal with it. So yeah, those are my two tips. Oh, two tips. There's a few tips in there. One is to use a gentle hand and not push it, and to just take your time with it. Number two is to pull from the direction that it was crocheted instead of up or down initially. Three, when you do get stuck, try instead moving down before you go up, just so you can try to release those fibers in a different direction. And three, yanking on those two sides. I think that's the most important part, is just like working in sections, unlock those fibers in that section first, and then, because by doing that, you're really unlocking those fibers for the most part. And then when you do come across a part that's stuck, it's not that difficult to pull up. So hopefully that was helpful. After spending a few hours doing this, and I still have a few hours to go, I am sure, probably watch the new Picard episode and finish this up tonight so that I can get my pretty yarn back and make a new project. Again, I love cookie yarn. I'm not trying to say anything bad about cookie yarn, but it really is kind of difficult to frog. I think it's probably the most difficult yarn I've ever used in terms of frogging, and that's saying a lot because I work with a lot of wool. This is just really fuzzy. Of course, you get really, really pretty colors. And so what am I going to do with this yarn that I have left over? This is the colorway Licorice. And it just so happens that my dog Elfie is these same colors. So I think I'm going to make a stuffed animal Elfie in the future. And Elfie's looking at me right now. Hi, Elfie. Should I make a you? Should I make a you? Yeah, maybe. I already made a needle felted you. Come here. Come here. You want to say hi? Let's see. You want to say hi? Elfie, she could say hi. She says, oh, you want to look up at the thing? Let's see. Anyway, my camera's mounted, but Elfie says hi. But she is the color. She has the black, she's got the white, she's got all the different grays in between. I think I can make a really, really cute Elfie. In fact, let me see if I can find the needle felted Elfie to show you. Hold on. Well, I sadly cannot find my needle felted Elfie, but I'll put a link in the description below if you want to see the first Elfie that I made. And she watched me make it, and she really enjoys it. I think she wishes that she could play with it, but I don't know how dog safe it is. But anyway, I'm going to make an Elfie with this yarn. Just got to finish frogging it first. And it'll probably take me at least a Star Trek episode or two to do so. But it's going to get done. I'm going to have beautiful yarn when I'm done. And I'm looking forward to working with it again. That's the beautiful thing about yarn, is that it's reusable. Some people will even buy sweaters from Goodwill or a secondhand store and unravel that yarn and make a new project with it. So that's one thing I just absolutely love about yarn, is its flexibility, its durability, and how you can reuse it. So hopefully your next frogging situation is much easier than mine, but if you do end up with difficult fuzzy yarn, I hope that my tips have helped to some extent. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. And I hope you all have a wonderful day and enjoy your crochet or any other crafty project that you're doing. And I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.